right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of O365Eh. In this episode, we're going to be talking about 2020 year in review and looking into 2021. It's been a very interesting year with everything happening around the world and with technology and especially Microsoft Teams, because that's what we've been focusing on a lot of our time this year. So we're going to be going through some of the episode recaps, some of the key features from 2021, and then what we're looking forward to in 2021. So with that, Kurt, why don't you start us off with the 2020 episode recap?
Yeah, well, 2020, like you said, Habib, was an interesting year. We covered a wide variety of subjects. We did a lot of interviews. Some of the episodes we did that didn't have an interview were around Teams emergency services. So, of course, this is a really important feature of Microsoft Teams for calling. Its ability for users to make an emergency call. And the details of Teams emergency calling get complicated depending on where you are, what geography you are in, what your options are for configuring it and setting it up. So that was a great episode. We covered that. And what I really liked about that episode is Dino and Michael covered some customer scenarios and how they address some of those challenges. And then, of course, COVID and work from home. That's a huge topic. We did a couple of episodes on working remotely. What I liked is we covered our own home setups and gave some tips for setting up that home office. And also with COVID too, we had an episode on user adoption during COVID, how to measure it, how to encourage adoption. Of course, a lot of enterprise were just thrown into the fire with work at home. So it's really important to measure that adoption and then even encourage it. And then, we had several episodes where we just covered the latest, greatest in Teams features. So if that's of interest, of course, just go to O365Eh and search for your favorite feature, and you can get up to date on the latest and greatest. With that, I'll kick it over to Dino to cover the episodes we did on some MVP and community.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. So just a quick recap of what we did within the Teams and Office 365 community. Episode 63, we had MVP Joanne Klein talk about governance, compliance, and data loss protection. Episode 65, interview with MVP Matt Wade talking about Teams etiquette and bots and the clever Office 365 periodic table over at www.jump to365.com. Episode 72, we interviewed the Teams Fest teams with MVPs Adam Deltinger, Chris Horde, Vesku Nopinen. And these are the guys that run an incredible one-day event all about Microsoft Teams. They had 85 sessions, over 8 tracks this year, which is great. And the event is going to be renamed Teams Nation, and it's slated for May 26, 2021. Switching gears a bit, we did a session in July, the O365 team, called Lesson from the Trenches, and that was a panel that we did over at Commsverse, which is another great conference dedicated to Teams. It's right around the corner on Feb 10th, 2021. We'll post the links to these so you can get signed up as well. And lastly, our team did another panel for the Minnesota Microsoft 365 user group, and they did a user group on Microsoft virtual admin workshop, and we dove into the top 10 announcements for Microsoft Ignite. So with that, Hab, over to you to talk about some of the product group episodes.
Yeah, so I think it was really good to have some of the Microsoft employees talk to us about certain feature sets. So we had in episode 55 Arvind Muthakrishnan, who's a senior program manager on the mobile Teams mobile application. We talked to him about Microsoft Teams mobile app, how what are the insights and how the mobile application was built and what was coming from the future. Episode 66, we had senior program manager Isabella Lubin to talk to us about the vision of Teams as a platform, adoption of Teams as a platform, some of the different scenarios for Teams as a platform, and some of the Microsoft Build announcements. We also had Nick Charlebois, who's a senior customer engineer, and we talked to him about the Microsoft Desired State Configuration, or DSC, how it came to be, sort of what his vision is, some of the use cases, and we also wrote a blog on how to run a Microsoft DSC in an Azure Runbook. And then lastly, we had John Levesque, who's he's a senior platform evangelist. He talked to us about the Power Platform, about their journey, over the last few years. What is Project Oakdale and Dataverse, and what the future was of Power Platform. So I thought that was really great to have them on the call with us. So I'll pass it over to Michael to talk about some of the vendor interviews we had.
Yeah, we had the pleasure to interview some of the vendors that have gone through the third party or the certification process with Microsoft. So we talked to Landis Technologies, so Matt Landis, who has a certified contact center solution as well as a compliance for cloud recording offering. Hopefully, we'll see in 2021 we'll see maybe an attendant console. Also, we talked to Computer Talk. Around their certified contact center. We talked to Nomics around their compliance cloud recording. And we also had the pleasure of talking to Adopt Embrace, one of the co-authors, Paul Woods. So we talked about the manager guide to communication, collaboration, and coordination with Microsoft Teams. So that was a good one. That was kind of a precursor to all the work from home adoption kind of paths. So we kind of had that one early in the year. And it's interesting because, we're recording right now episode 79. So, we did, about 26 episodes. So about a year ago on episode 53, we were recapping 2019. So we did a top 5 improved, released, announced episode. And during that episode, we talked about, some of the features we were expecting to see in 2020. So, direct routing or direct guest join, which we've seen come out with on the Microsoft Teams rooms for both Zoom and Cisco. Multi-window support, we've seen that come out. The Tasks app, so Planner and To-Do being rolled up into a single Teams app. The Outlook integration, so being able to share from Outlook and from Teams to Outlook. And the custom background. So all those items that were announced in 2019 did come out pretty early on in 2020. Some of the hopeful items that we came out of 2019 was, tenant migration APIs, and we've seen those kind of get moved along, and vendors build out their solutions for that. Contact card improvements. I still don't think that it's there where we need it, but we are seeing that early in 2021. I think January, we're going to see the new calling app come out with Teams, so we should see some improvements there. Around search, a lot of effort on the Microsoft side to improve search. So we saw that come out. The attendant console, 2020 wasn't the year for the attendant console, so I'm hoping 2021 is. And multiple tenant experience within the Teams client. We're seeing fast switching and stuff like that. So, and hooks into the Teams for Life aspects. So we're seeing some work on that side as well. With that, maybe I'll throw to Dino to talk about some of the key features that did come out in 2020 in addition.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Starting off with MTR, Microsoft Teams Rooms, one of the biggest announcements and what translated from Ignite was the collaboration bars and MTRs, the meeting teams or the Microsoft Teams Rooms are merging. So before we had distinct collab bars and that ran on Android, and Microsoft Teams Room, which ran a version of Windows, that were distinct products. And these are going to be merging, and they're going to differentiate them basically with these clever names, MTR Android and MTR for Windows. So from the Microsoft roadmap, you could see that these features of the two classes of devices were slowly coming together and being more closely matched. For example, MTR for Android will be getting support for 2 displays, 1080p, among other things. So before they didn't have that. So I think that's going to be a really good thing, and you'll start to see more and more of that feature parity coming between those two. The display, the Teams display was released this year. This is what's like an all-in-one dedicated Teams device that lets you do chat, meetings, calls, calendar. Michael just held up a picture there, or actual device there. You can do all those things in a single device. And the first one to release was the Lenovo ThinkSmart View. And the A-Link is slated, is going to be releasing a device as well. So look for that. Next up was Teams panels, which these aren't released yet, but announced at Ignite. And these are going to be room booking panels, essentially, for physical meeting rooms. These devices will be mounted outside of meeting rooms and offer one-touch access to booking rooms. An interesting feature for these devices will be that they'll allow users to find nearby rooms and even map out how you can walk over to that room in your physical building, which is great. So look for these devices in 2021 from Crestron and Yealing. Next up was the SIP Gateway for 2021 and 3-pip support beyond July of 2023. So what this means is Microsoft announced standardized support for SIP phones coming in 2021. So likely a result of the Metaswitch acquisition. This will allow anybody running standard SIP phones to be registered against Teams and provide basic calling functionality. And this is big news for orgs that have massive inventories of these types of phones that were potentially faced with replacing them. Along with that announcement, they also said support for 3-pip phones, the phones that work with Skype for Business, will also be extended beyond the originally announced date of retirement of July 31st, 2023. So this is really big news for those orgs that were, again, faced with having to retire these devices. Survivable branch appliances were just released, hot off the presses, and these appliances will allow telephony to keep working via PSTN connection. If you're using direct routing, you have a PSTN connection. The survivable branch appliance will allow you to continue to make phone calls even though you have an internet outage. So this is going to work with a new mode called Teams Offline mode. And so this will be key for orgs that place really high value on PSTN calling. Next up, we have Poly CCX and MTRs. So Poly released a full lineup of Teams only phones called the CCX. They have the 4, 5, 6, and 700 line. And they also released meeting room devices for both Android and Windows. The Android lineup being referred to as the Poly Studio X, and the Windows device is called the G series. So there's the X30 and X50 along with the G10, G40, and G85 for MTR. And lastly, we have an interesting device, the A-Link USB phone. I believe it's called the MP50. And this is going to be an affordable alternative to IP-based phones. So it offers a USB connected phone experience with a touchscreen. It's aimed at, there's another, there it is there. Thank you. Got my little assistant popping up devices there. And it's really geared toward a low-cost alternative for those wanting a physical phone on their desk. I believe the phone will launch at $99 US. So that'll be an interesting proposition for those looking for an alternative to IP-based phones. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kurt, who's going to talk analytics and extensibility.
All right, thanks, Dino. So yeah, 2020 saw a lot of new features and capabilities released for Teams analytics and extensibility. Of course, we're all familiar with the call quality dashboard, which contains a lot of rich data to troubleshoot any issues and get insight into calling and meetings. So what they released is Power BI call quality, and that you can consume that call quality data through the built-in dashboard in the Teams Admin Center. But with this Power BI CQD, you can actually use Power BI to query and report on the data. And there's pre-built Power BI templates you can use and actually customize to get the view of the data that you want. And then you can distribute these to anyone in your organization who has a Power BI license. And they'll also need call quality admin permissions to see that data. And there's also call quality data for auto attendant and call queues. and they shipped 3 reports. One is for auto attendance, another one's for call queues, and another one's for agent timeline. So those will give you really good insight into how call queues and auto attendance are performing if that's a feature set that you leverage for your business. And then also MS Lists. This was SharePoint Lists sort of rebranded as a Microsoft 365 app that can be used right inside of Teams. And this allows teams to create, share, and track lists with anyone. So it's a fantastic list management experience right inside of Teams. And more recently, of course, Microsoft released Productivity Score, which has insights about your organization. And, it's meant to identify opportunities to improve productivity inside your organization. This has a rich set of data about what employees are doing. And Microsoft took a lot of heat over the privacy around that. For example, managers could see the number of hours a user spent in meetings in Microsoft Teams, for example. So in response to sort of some of the concerns around the privacy, I think it was on December 1st, Microsoft made an announcement where to address those privacy concerns, they basically removed the employee names, and it's just, you can see aggregate summary data, not down to the individual user. So still very useful to, look at what's going on inside your organizations from a productivity and adoption perspective. And I've used this. It really is quite powerful. I think some organizations will get huge benefits from it. On the extensibility side, one of the things Microsoft released was a getting started app for Teams app development. And 2020 for me in Microsoft Teams was really the evolution of Teams as a platform. And there's, of course, the whole low code, no code citizen developer vision that Microsoft has. And this getting started app is really, really important for people just to, their first foray into developing a Teams app. This is a blank template that you can use to surface content right inside a Teams app, or do something like an FAQ bot. So that's all available for anyone who wants to get started there. And also on a manageability front, some pretty big news for all of us who have, come from a Skype for Business background. The infamous Skype for Business online connector, known as the PowerShell module for Skype for Business, has been deprecated. So almost all the functionality is now in the new Teams PowerShell module, and the Skype for Business online connector officially retires in February of 2021. So for all the people out there that have scripts that do something against Teams and Skype for Business, you'll want to update your scripts to use the new Teams PowerShell module. And lastly, just to flip back to extensibility, one of the things I missed was the whole Power Platform story, which really evolved during 2020. And Microsoft really evolved Power Apps and this Dataverse concept, which the Dataverse is basically, when you do a Power App, it's a database data layer that you can just customize when you're developing your app, rather than having to commission a database and create a schema and everything. It allows you to do that directly as part of the app development, which is really, really powerful. And again, once you develop a Power App, it's very simple to turn it into a Teams app. So again, just making it easier to extend and develop against Microsoft Teams. So with that, I'll pass it over to Dino Habib, and you're going to recap meetings and collaboration in 2020.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. So, from a meetings and collaboration perspective, I'm not sure where a lot of these features were going to be slated to be released, but it just felt like Microsoft put on the gas pedal and started just pumping out these feature sets. Obviously, COVID was probably one of the big factors in that, because everybody was working from home, and the major way that they can communicate with one another is through the meetings and collaboration side of things. So, there's a ton of feature set here. I'll try and run through them as best and quickly as I can. So obviously there's a new pop-out meeting experience that you're used to using now, which is great because now you can have that that pop-out and have a lot more functionality. The moving of the U bar into the upper right-hand corner for managing and taking care of your meetings. There's the meeting management experience that is no longer a web page for the meeting options. It's all done within the meeting itself, and they're bringing a lot more of that functionality in there as well, along with the I guess some of that configuration in the Outlook or meeting creation experience as well. The together mode, so the 7x7 join, so you can see 49 people within your meeting. I think one of the big ones was the ability to have custom backgrounds. So we did have the background blur before, but the ability to set custom backgrounds and then I guess being able to use your own. Microsoft releases quite a bunch of them as well to utilize as well there. There's from, I guess, a meeting perspective, there's the spotlight functionality where you can just spotlight a single person's video. The newly released breakout rooms, where I think that one was pretty big, that people have been waiting for, to have people break out into certain rooms within the same meeting and bring them back all together. The new 5 minutes remaining in the meeting, I love this feature. I think it's really great just to give everybody an idea that how much time is left within your meeting. Information information panel, removing the noise. So I guess moving into sort of the collaboration. Actually, no, the one thing I want to mention as well for meeting experience as well is the new NDI functionality that allows people to create custom layouts and custom production of Microsoft Teams meetings or live events and stuff like that. I think that was really huge to be able to give organizations the ability to have that personal touch on that production side of things. And then so now moving into the collaboration side, we have the new conversation button, because I know from firsthand working with a lot of my clients, there's definitely always confusions between the reply and starting a new conversation. So now it's really great so that it's out of the way kind of thing. There's the information panel. So anytime that someone is added or removed from a team, it doesn't show that information within there. It's shown within the new information panel. New functionality, which is called the preview functionality. So essentially you get added into Microsoft Ring 3.6, which is a preview of the new feature and functionality. And we covered that in one of our episodes earlier this year as well, if you want to get more depth in that. Communication compliance, so to be able to have that ability to search for communication or create cases or apply I guess cases or what have you, or I guess legal hold for Teams channel and chat messages. And then sensitivity labels, additional features that has been brought in there. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot more. These are some of the bigger ones that we've picked out for this episode. So I'm going to sort of maybe start diving into sort of what 2020, the things that I'm sort of looking out for. Obviously, I think that the gas pedal is still put down, and a lot of this new functionality is going to be coming out. I mean, from a meeting experience, because I have I go to a lot of them, or I'm part of a lot of meetings. For the most part, I'm looking forward to some of the custom layouts that you have the ability to create custom layouts. And just any of the new meeting experiences that are coming out. And so I'm going to pass it on to, I think Dino, was going to be next, right?
Yeah, thanks. I'm just to be quick, I'm looking forward to Teams panels because it means that we'll be back in the office and, interacting with folks and having real meetings again. As much as I love the virtual experience, I think it'll be nice to be able to get back into the office. So looking forward to actually seeing and touching and using and booking meetings, real meetings with Teams panels. I think on a serious note, I think it'd be a very nice device. The ability to map out where you need to walk to. I think that's often when you, as somebody new to an organization, you may not know where the heck some of these meeting rooms are. Even in some buildings you've been familiar with, it's often difficult to find an open room. So that's going to be something to look forward to. And I think I'm passing it on to Michael.
Yeah, I think kind of what I'm expecting to see in 2021 is, the increase of additional certified vendors, right? So direct routing has hit 13 certified SBCs. Contact center has, 13 as well. We're kind of seeing an explosion of vendors that are doing like hosted or managed direct routing services. At least in November, December, I've seen crazy amount of players getting into the market. So it's interesting to see where it will take in 2021, where Teams is the end user experience, but all these vendors are connecting their telephony solutions or their contact center solutions into Microsoft's ecosystem. It'll be interesting to see how much further they take it, and maybe we start to see some of the larger telcos and carriers around the globe also having their solutions and their offerings. Maybe with that, I'll throw it to Kurt to see what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, well, like Habib, I spend so much of my life on meetings. I'm just really looking forward to any improvement. Microsoft's done a great job just evolving the whole meeting experience. So just looking for anything that helps productivity. So that'll be good. One thing that will come in 2021 is just improvements in the whole manageability of Teams. And, specifically Microsoft released in 2020, as I think we talked about the migration APIs, because there's a lot of pain out there with companies doing mergers and acquisitions, doing a tenant-to-tenant migration, or migrating off of a third-party competitive platform like Slack. And so there's an import and an export API that have been released. They still have some they're not fully functional yet, and I think we'll see the improvement of those APIs, which will just make the tenant-to-tenant migration experience that much better. So there's that, and Teams Admin Center too. I think we're just going to see that continue to evolve and just more capabilities around managing your Teams environment. Because as the number of Teams deployments have exploded, there's just more and more needs to manage it. So we're going to see a continued evolution of that, which I'm really looking forward to. And then lastly, we talked about the whole Teams extensibility story. That's maturing, and I am seeing more organizations dive in and do custom Teams apps, and specifically integration with Power Platform, the automation. I think that's going to be a really powerful story in 2020 that we're going to see unfold. And that's about it for me.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think, it's definitely been, I think, an interesting 2020, especially around the community. We haven't been able to sort of get together in such a long time. So I'm also looking forward to hopefully one day seeing you lads all in person again, and seeing everybody else in the community. And, this is our third year going through this, doing our podcast, and I'm looking forward to recording and sharing more content with you guys as well. So it's been a great ride. Looking forward to it next year as well. So thanks everybody for listening in, and hopefully we'll catch you on our next episode. Thanks.